Well, Northwest Hope and Healing is an organization that does something that few organizations are doing. Some organizations will help with medical expenses, which is very valid, and some help with research, which is really important. But when you are in the heat of breast cancer and you can't pay your rent, it matters. It takes time away from your job, it takes time away from your kids, and it costs a lot of money of things that aren't medical expenses. And Northwest Hope and Healing steps in to fill that gap so that people don't have to choose whether they pay their co-pays for their medical insurance or to pay their rent.
When I first found out that I had breast cancer, which was my second cancer, there was so much fear and insecurity, and these people just sort of came out of nowhere from Northwest Hope and Healing and gave me the support I really needed at that moment.
I am a good friend of Christine Smith's, and she is the founder of Northwest Hope and Healing. She started it at a time when she was dealing with her own cancer and 2 small toddlers. I was really impressed that she would think of others in the same situation and want to help them. So I wanted to do what I could to support her.
Tomorrow it could be a mom or a sister or an aunt or a loved one that is given the diagnosis. There's not warning signs many times. It doesn't matter genetic markers anymore. It's not a family disease, is what I always get. It's you're 27 and doing a breast exam and you find a lump. And there was nothing. I was fine the day before and I was fine the day after, but I was stage 3, very sick. So I think that because it is on the rise, especially in Washington, and it's so important, and the research is so important right now, and helping women in the area and knowing that the money's going local makes a huge difference. And that's why Northwest Hope and Healing has a place in my heart.
Speaking firsthand, I was a recipient of the gift basket at my initial diagnosis, and as I was going through a difficult time and really didn't have anybody, it was just a welcome gift. And it let me know that there were people out there that had been through this journey but really cared. And they might be strangers, but they all knew what I was going through with that diagnosis.
Yeah, I felt something and it's like, I don't know, I'm not much of a worrywart, but I kept thinking, you know, probably ought to get a baseline at 40. And at that time, they were really saying at 50, but some of the outliers were saying, yeah, you ought to get a baseline at 40, a mammogram. And when I went in, the doctor really fought it. He said, no, you don't really need that. I said, you know, I really think I should. And they found it through a mammogram. Had I not, I don't know, it'd be a different story today. But my treatment was very minimal in comparison to a lot of the women, I think, because of finding it through that and listening to my body. So I think other women need to know that.
When I was diagnosed, I was 35 years old and had a 2-year-old daughter. And I had already had a mastectomy and then had the bad news they didn't get it all. So I'd had a node dissection and then I had begun chemo. And it's a terrifying place in your life. And I didn't know what my prognosis was at that point. Nobody did. And I felt scared and lonely. And someone knocked on my door and told me that they had received my name as someone who was going through cancer and they had a present for me. And it had tea bags and chocolate and a pair of socks and a little pink teddy bear. And my 2-year-old came and said, who gave that to you? And I said, well, there's these people we've never met. And she said, well, why did they give them to you? And I said, because people care. And they heard about us and they wanted to help us. And she held that little bear and she thought it was special too. And I did not feel alone in that moment. I thought, I'm surrounded by community, and that mattered a great deal to me.
Northwest Hope and Healing gave me a basket, I think within the first week of once everything was confirmed. I had to go in for additional testing, and it was at Swedish Hospital. And I went downstairs on the bottom floor, and I met a number of people from them, and I was given my basket. And it was wonderful because there were a lot of women there that I could talk with who had already been through it and gave me wonderful support and help when I needed it.
I think everyone has their reasons, and I will try not to cry as I say mine. Mine's named Tessa, She was born in 2003. She's my daughter. She was 2 when I was diagnosed. And I knew that if I died, she wouldn't remember me. And that was unacceptable because I wanted her to go through life knowing her love from her mother. And when I thought it was impossible, and when I thought I could not go one more step because there was another surgery, because there was another complication, because there was another near miss, I looked in her face and I knew I just had to keep going. And so I did.
When you're faced with cancer, all the medical appointments and the time it takes, you may not be able to keep up your work. Perhaps your insurance isn't going to cover anything. And there are a lot of unexpected expenses that can come on top of that. So the Patients Assistance Fund usually provides grants of up to $500 to help someone get through an emergency, just to make the utility payment or pay the emergency rent so that they can get through. And I think it's very nice if you're in that situation to know that there were people who made it possible for you to get through that hardship, people who wanted to help you. And so many of them have returned to the organization to give back their time and their efforts because they want to help those who are yet to come.
I think the basket made such a difference because it's such a terrifying time that I was looking for hope. And I wanted to grasp on any straw I could grab on that said the world was an okay place, that was kind and loving, and that I had what it took to get through this. And so the kindness of strangers reaching out to me and taking care of myself and my family gave me that little bit of hope that said, maybe I do have what it takes to get through this.
Any amount of support that you can get, friends or from an organization like Northwest Hope and Healing, can really make your day. I would get cards from friends and family that I hadn't seen or that live across the state, and I would literally cry in my driveway reading them. So anything, just to know that someone's thinking of you, is really powerful.